Okay, so this is 41. It's just a 2 by 2, so that makes it so much easier. When I write it as a matrix, it's going to look like this: 2, 3, negative 13, 1, 4, negative 14. So you want it to look like this: 1, 0, 0, 1, and then some numbers over here. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to swap these rows first of all. So that's going to be my first step. So now I have a 1 in my first spot. So I've got 1 in my first spot. So this is my augmented matrix. Remember, that's your augmented matrix, and we can swap rows in it. So now I'm going to go negative 2 times row 1, add it to row 2, and it's going to make a new row 2. So negative 2, negative 8, positive 28. So that was negative 2 times all of this. And now I add that to row 2, 2, 3, negative 13, 0, 11, and 28 minus 13. Oh, that's a negative 8. There we go. So negative 5, 28 minus 13 is 15. So now I just divide this all by negative 5. And I have 0, 1, negative 3. So now my matrix is 1, 4, negative 14, 0, 1, negative 3. So now I just need that 4 to become a 0. So all I have to do is multiply row 3 by negative 4. So negative 4 times row 3. Add that to row 1. And that's going to make a new row 1. So negative 4 times row 3 is 0, negative 4, positive 12. So that's negative 4 times all this. I add it to my first row. 1, 4, negative 14. I get 1, 0, negative 2. So that's my answer. 1, 0, negative 2, 0, 1, negative 3. So that means x equals negative 2 and y equals negative 3. And that's all you have to do. Circle that. Okay, number 44. So this doesn't have 1 to begin with, and they're not all, this bottom one's all divisible by 3, so I'm just going to divide that all by 3. And that makes x minus 4y equals negative 3. So that's going to be my top row of my matrix. So I'm going to write 1, negative 4, negative 3. If possible, again, we want, excuse me, we want that top row to be a 1, okay? So I now have that. Remember, we want it to look like this. So I get this 0 right here first. So I'm going to multiply 2 times row 1 and add it to row 2. And that's going to make my new row 2. So 2 times this first row is 2, negative 8, negative 6. Then my bottom row, row 2 hasn't changed. So that's 0, 7, 0. If I divide that by 7, I get 0, 1, 0. That just means that y equals 0. Nothing wrong with that. Now, if it would have said 0, 0, 0, then we know that it's infinitely many solutions. So now I want this negative 4 to disappear. So I'm going to multiply row 2 by 4 and add it to row 1. So 0, 4, 0, 1, negative 4, negative 3. That makes 1, 0, negative 3. So that's row 1. Remember, we multiply stuff on the outside here, but that does not change that row on the inside of the matrix. So 0, 1, 0. And again, that's my answer. So now question 48, I'm going to make this a matrix. I'm going to move row 2 up, so that becomes 1, 3, 7, 5. And then it doesn't matter. Negative 2, negative 8, negative 15, negative 11. So I moved row 3 as well, and then I'll put row 1 down here at the bottom. 3, 5, 9, 3. So if I look at my steps over here on the left, it tells me what I need to do. And I'll do this both ways so you can see it. So row 2, that needs to be a 0, so I multiply row 1 by 2, and I add that to row 2, and it's going to make a new row 2. So 2 times row 1 is 2, 6, 14, and 10. And then row 2 is negative 2, negative 8, negative 15, negative 11. So when I add those together, I get 0, negative 2, negative 1, negative 1. That's my new row 2. So now I'm going to work on my row 3. I need to multiply row 1 by negative 3. So negative 3 times row 1 plus row 3, and it's going to make a new row 3. So negative 3 times row 1 is negative 3, negative 9, 21, negative 15. Add that to row 3, 3, 5, 9, 3. That makes 0, negative 4, 30, negative 12. A lot of times what I'll do, before I write, I'll just put it in row 3 here. Before I write this down in my matrix and move from there, I know that I have to combine these two to get rid of this middle term. So I see that row 2's half as big as row 3 right here. I need that to become a 4 really. So I'm going to just multiply row 2 by negative 2. So I'm going to go negative 2 times row 2 and add that to row 3 to make a new row 3. So 2 times that row becomes negative 2 times that, 0, 4, 2, 2. Add that to my row 3, 0, negative 4, 30, negative 12. That becomes 0, well those are 0, that becomes 0, 32, and 2 and 12 makes negative 10. I messed up somewhere, so hold on. I found my mistake. So my mistake, negative 3 times row 1, that should be negative 3, negative 9, negative 21, negative 15. So that should be a negative 21 right there. So then when I combine those, that makes a negative 12. So this 30 right here should be a negative 12 as well. Negative 12 plus 2 makes negative 10. So now I'm going to go row 3 divided by negative 10, and I get 0, 0, 1, 1. So now if I'm keeping track of this, that's my new bottom row. 0, 0, 1, 1. My row 2 is this one right here. So 0, 2, negative 1, negative 1, and row 1 has not changed. Okay, so now I've got 0, 0, 0, 1. That's this step, this step, this step, and this step. So I have 4 left. I need this negative 1 to disappear. So I'm looking at that and I go, oh, well that's already, those will add up and they'll disappear. If you wanted to write it off to the side right here, we're going to go row 3 plus row 2. It's going to make a new row 2. Row 3 doesn't change anymore. Okay. Now when I add row 3 and row 2 together, I'm going to have 0, 2, 0, 0 again. So now if I divide that by 2, I have 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0. So that just means that y is 0, and that's, like I said, that's all right. 1, 3, 7, 5. So now what I need to do is I need to get this 7 to go away and this 3 to go away. Okay, so to get the 7 to go away, I have to use row 3, which is this step right here, row 3 times row 1. So I'm going to go 7 times row 3. So that's negative 7 times row 3, add it to row 1, and it makes a new row 1. So that's 0, 0, negative 7, negative 7. I add that to row 1. 1, 3, 7, 5. That makes 1, 3, 0, negative 2. So now I'm going to take that answer. That's my new row 1. I need this 3 to go away. So I'm going to go negative 3 times row 2 and add that to row 1. It's going to make my new row 1. So 3 times row 2 is 0, negative 3, 0, 0. Add that to row 1, to my new row 1, which is this one. 1, 3, 0, negative 2. And that's 1, 0, 0, negative 2. 1, 0, 0, negative 2. And so that's my answer on that problem. Okay. So I have 1's down the diagonal, 0's everywhere else. X is negative 2, Y is 0, Z is 1. Using the other method, I just put the numbers in here, 1, 3, 7, 5. Skip a few lines. Negative 2, negative 8, negative 15, negative 11. Skip a few more lines. 3, 5, 9, 3. Actually, with this one, I know that those are going to become zeros, so I can actually just put 0. Well, let's just write them down and then. I get my spacing wrong sometimes on this, but. So I want those each to become 0. So I'm going to multiply this by 2 and add it to here. So 2 times 1 plus negative 2 is 0. 2 times 3 is 6 plus negative 8 is negative 2. 2 times 7 is 14 plus negative 15 is negative 1. 2 times 5 is 10 plus negative 11 is negative 1. Now I'm going to multiply it by negative 3. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. Add it to 3 is 0. Negative 3 times 3 is negative 9. Add it to 5 is negative 4. Negative 3 times 7 is negative 21. Add it to 9 is 12 negative. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15, plus 3 is 12 negative. Okay, so that's the important part with this, is sometimes it is quicker, but you have to make sure you get your signs right. So now I want this negative 4 to disappear. So I want it to look like this. So I multiply this row by negative 2. Negative 2 times 0 is 0, and plus 0 is 0. Negative 2 times negative 2 is plus 4. Add it to this negative 4, makes 0. Negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. Add it to negative 12, makes negative 10. Negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. Add it to negative 12, makes negative 10. So now I just divide everything by negative 10. That makes 0, 0, 1, 1. Okay, so now I look back up here, I want this to become a 0. So I add this bottom row to that. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus negative 2 is negative 2. 1 plus negative 1 is 0. 1 plus negative 1 is 0. Now I just divide that and I get 0, 1, 0, 0. I divided it all by negative 2. So this row and this row. Now I've just got to get the top row. So I want this 7 to disappear. So I'm going to multiply this by negative 7. So negative 7 plus 1 is, or negative 7 times 1 is negative 7 plus 7 is 0. Negative 7 times 1 is negative 2. Negative 7 plus 5 is negative 2. And these don't change because it's 0. Now I want this 3 to disappear, so I come to this one that has the star. I multiply that by negative 3. 0 plus 1 is 0, is 1. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3, plus this negative 3 is 0. And then these all just stay the same because that, in this case, happened to be 0. But we really want negative 3 times all of this, and added it to this row. So anyways, I get 1, 0, 0, negative 2, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1. So that's just a different way to do it. Okay, so on 49, none of these have a 1 on them. So it's going to make things a little bit more challenging, but it's not impossible to do. These aren't all divisible by 2. These are all divisible by 3, so that makes things easier. I'm going to divide that all by 3. So that makes that x minus 3y plus 2z equals 3. So I'm going to rewrite this as my new first row. And then I put my other 2 below it. Okay, so I'm going to write those down over here. X whoops, not an X, 1, negative 3, 2, 3. And then this one, negative 2, 4, 1, 7. Somewhere I messed up. That's not right. That should be 17. No, that's right. That's 7. So negative 2x plus 4y plus c equals 7. That's the bottom row. I didn't get this one right. There we go. Put some spaces in there. 4, negative 13, 10, 17. And it doesn't hurt to take a minute and hurry and check over your work, make sure you've got it right. So I hit pause, I checked all my numbers, make sure they had the right signs. As far as I can tell, they're good. Might have messed up and don't know it. But anyways, I want this to become a 0 and this to become a 0. So I'm going to multiply all of this by 2 and add it to this. So 2 times 1 is 2, minus 2 is 0. So I know that's going to work. That's what I'm doing. So you don't even really need to do that step. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6, plus 4 is negative 2. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 7 is 13. Now this needs to become 0, so I have to multiply this by negative 4. I know the first one's going to make it 0, so I'm not even going to worry about that. Negative 4 times negative 3 is 12, minus 13 is negative 1. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8, plus 10 is 2. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12, plus 17 is 5. So now in the next one, I need this to become 0 and that to become 0. So I look at these two. So now negative 2 times 2 is negative 4, plus 5 is 1. Negative 2 times 5 is negative 10, plus 13 is 3. So that line is all done now. I don't have to divide anything because it's 1 and 3. So now looking at this one, I want that 5 to disappear, so I multiply this row by negative 5. So I'm going to have a 0 and a 0 here, because negative 5 times 1 is negative 5 added to 5 is 0. Negative 5 times 3 is negative 15, plus 13 is negative 2. And that negative 2 is still there because 0 times negative 5 is 0 plus that. So it hasn't changed. Now I add those to, or divide it all by negative 2. I get 0, 1, 0, 1. So that row is done. So this row is now done. This row is done. So now I want this to become a 0 right here. So I multiply the bottom one by negative 2. So negative 2 times all of those doesn't change them. So that's just 1 and negative 3. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. So when I add it to that, it makes 0. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Add it to that is negative 3. So now I want this 3 to disappear, not to stay a 0. So I multiply this row by 3. 3 times 0 is still 0. Add it to 1 is 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus negative 3 is 0. 3 times 0 is 0. Add it to 0 is still 0. And then 3 times 1 is 3. Add it to negative 3 is 0. So my matrix answer is 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1. So I'm looking for my little stars over here. And 0, 0, 1, 3. So now if I do it writing the steps out, I'm going to multiply this row by 2. So that's 2 times row 1 plus row 2 makes a new row 2. So that's 2, negative 6, 4, and 6. Negative 2, 4, 1, 7. That's row 2. I add those together. I get 0, negative 2, 5, 13. That's my new row 2. Now I take the top row and multiply it by negative 4. So that's negative 4 times row 1 plus row 3 is going to make a new row 3. So negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 3 is a positive 12. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. I add that to the bottom row. 4, negative 13, 10, 17. So 0, negative 1, 2, 5. So that's my new row 3. Okay. So now I'm going to take those two, and I'm going to make this negative 1 disappear on row 3. And I see that on row 2 it's a negative 2. So I multiply all this by negative 2. So I'm going to go negative 2 times my new row 3. Add that to my row 2 to make a new row 3. So negative 2 times all this, 0, 2, negative 4, negative 10. So I just double all those and change the sign. Add it to row 2, 0, negative 2, 5, 13. So I get 0, 0, 1, 3. Okay, that's my new row 3. So if I were writing this down, 1, negative 3, 2, 3. Row 2 is now 0, negative 2, 5, 13. And row 1 is 0, 0, 1, 3. So now I want this 5 to become a 0. So I am going to go negative 5 times row 3, add that to row 2, and it's going to make a new row 2. So 0, 0, negative 5, negative 15. 0, negative 2, 5, 13. That makes 0, negative 2, 0, negative 2. Divide this all by negative 2. I get 0, 1, 0, 1. So that's my new row 2. So if I'm writing this out, row 3 is completed. It didn't change inside there. My new row 2 is now done. So now I just need to work on row 1. So I want this 2 to disappear. So to get that 2 to disappear, I multiply row 3 by negative 2. So negative 2 times row 3, add it to row 1, and it's going to make a new row 1. So that's 0, 0, negative 2, negative 6. Add that to row 1 is 1, negative 3, 2, 3. So that makes 1, negative 3, 0, negative 3. So that's my new row 1. I want this negative 3 to disappear, so I use my row 2 to do that. So I'm going to go 3 times row 2, add it to my new row 1. It's going to make a new row 1. So 3 times row 2, that just goes 0, 3, 0, 3. Row 1 is this one right here. This is my row 1 now. 1, negative 3, 0, negative 3. I add those together, I get 1, 0, 0, 0. So my top row is 1, 0, 0, 0. And that's my answer. So same answer we got doing it the other way. It's just whatever way you prefer. So I'll do one more, both methods, so you can choose which way you like. So this problem is a little bit different as in the sense that it doesn't have x, y, and z all on the same side. So in this problem, I'm going to add the y and the 3z to get it equal to 7. So my number's on one side and my variables are on the left. So I'm going to have 2x plus y plus 3z equals 7. So what I did is I added y to this side, added 3z to this side. I'm going to minus the z over here, so I have x plus y minus z equals 5. And down here, I'm going to minus the 2y and add the x. So I'm going to add the x minus the 2y. 16z stays the same, equals negative 4. So now if I rewrite this as a matrix, I'm going to put the middle one as my first row. So it's going to be 1, 1, negative 1, 5. And then I'll just put the row 3 here. 1, negative 2, 16, negative 4. And then 2, 1, 3, 7. So that's now the matrix that I'm going to work with. So if I write that in here, 1, 1, negative 1, 5. 1, negative 2, 16, negative 4. And then 2, 1, 3, 7. So I want this to become a 0. I want this to become a 0. I multiply all this top row by negative 1. So negative 1 plus 1 is 0. Negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. And a negative 2 make negative 3. A negative and negative make a positive. That makes 17. Negative 1 makes negative 5. Add it to negative 4 makes negative 9. I multiply this top one all by negative 2. So negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Add it to 2 is 0. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Add it to 1 is negative 1. Negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. Add it to 3 is 5. Negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. Add it to 7 is negative 3. So now what I want to have happen is I want this to be 0, 0. So I multiply this row all by negative 3 and add it to row 2. So that doesn't change because those are both zeros. Negative 3 times negative 1 is 3. Added to negative 3 makes my 0. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. Add it to 17 is negative positive 2. Negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. Add it to negative 9 makes 0. Divide that by 2, I get 0, 0, 1, 0. So now I want this 17 to disappear, so I multiply this one by negative 17. And when I add that to it, I get 0, negative 3, 0, 0. I mean negative 9. So I went negative 17 times 0 is still 0. Add it to that is that. Now if I divide that all by 1, I should have left a line somewhere. That's going to be a 3. And this is going to be a 1. So that row is done. Now I need this negative 1 on the top to go to 0, so I add that to my bottom row. 0 plus 5, so that's done. I want this 1 to become a 0 here. So I multiply this all by negative 1 and add it to it. So negative 1 times 0 doesn't change. Negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. Add it to 0. 0 doesn't change. Negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. Add it to 5 is 2. So that's my answer. 1, 0, 0, 2. 0, 1, 0, 3. 0, 0, 1, 0. Okay. If I do it the other way, row 1 plus, well, negative row 1 plus row 2 is going to make a new row 2. So that's negative 1, negative 1, 1, negative 5, 1, negative 2, 16, negative 4. So that's 0, negative 3, 17, negative 9. That's my new row 2. Negative 2 times row 1, add it to row 3, is going to make my new row 3. So negative 2, negative 2, 2, negative 10. That's multiplying the negative 2 to everything. 2, 1, 3, 7. So that's 0, negative 1, 5, negative 3. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add these two together. This is my new row 3. And I want it to be 0, 0, so I need to multiply row 3 all by negative 3. So negative 3 times row 3 plus row 2. So that makes 0, 3, negative 15, positive 9. Add that to here. 0, negative 3, 17, negative 9. That becomes 0, 0, 2, 0. I divide it by 2. I get 0, 0, 1, 0. And that's my new row 3. So 0, 0, 1, 0. That's my row 3. My row 2 is 0, negative 3, 17, negative 9. And row 1 is 1, 1, negative 1, 5. So now I want this 17 to disappear. So I go row 3 times negative 17, add that to row 2, and it's going to make a new row 2. So I get 0, 0, negative 17, 0, 0, negative 3, 17, negative 9. That makes 0, negative 3, 0, negative 9. Divide all of this by negative 3, and you get 0, 1, 0, 3. So now I look at the top row. The top row has this negative 1. I want it to go away, so I just add that to the bottom row. So row 1 plus row 3, and that's going to make a new row 1. So row 1 is 1, 1, negative 1, 5. Add that to the bottom row, 0, 0, 1, 0. That's 1, 1, 0, 5. Now I want this one in the middle to go away, so I add that to row 3. So, into row 2. So negative row 2 added to row 1 makes a new row 1. I'm going to scribble over the top of this. Sorry, it's going to be a mess. So 0, negative 1, 0, negative 3. Add that to row 1, which is 1, 1, 0, 5. That's 1, 0, 0, 2. And that's my final answer on that. So depending on which way you do it, doesn't matter. You'll get the same answer. Good luck. Hopefully this helps.